Good morning, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. I'm Jose Diaz-Balart. Right now, an urgent manhunt is underway for the suspect in the murder of the CEO of United Healthcare, Brian Thompson. This is a chilling scene early Wednesday morning. The gunman seen waiting, then shooting Thompson from behind on a Manhattan sidewalk. NBC News has learned that the words deny, defend, and depose were on the shell casings at the scene of the shooting, according to a senior law enforcement official. The New York Times published this surveillance footage showing someone wearing similar clothing to the gunman from about 10 minutes before Thompson was shot and about 175 feet away from the scene. NBC News reached out to the NYPD overnight for comment on the video, but we were not immediately able to confirm that it showed the suspect. This morning, New York City Mayor Eric Adams addressed the investigation.
We are on the right pathway, and we don't want to do anything that's going to not only impede the investigation, but hurt the prosecution of the person involved. But we feel that we're moving at a steady pace, and we're going to have someone apprehended.
Joining us now, Jim Cavanaugh, retired ATF special agent in charge and an MSNBC contributor. Jim, always great seeing you. Let's talk about this 24-hour period that has passed pretty much after the shooting. What are law enforcement officials likely doing right now?
Well, I think they've had a number of suspects. I think they've probably zeroed in on some. The suspect was shown walking. You just showed the video there, Jose. He was talking on a cell phone. Who are you talking to on a cell phone on your way to a homicide? I mean, they've pulled all the cameras. If they have tracked him to a location, they probably have a look at his face. Candy wrappers that he bought at Starbucks and a water bottle were found. That can yield fingerprints and DNA. And, of course, we have this delay, deny, depose inscribed on the shell casings in a live round, which, clearly goes to this insurance company motive and his insurance company executive. So I think we're likely dealing with a person who is bent on revenge over maybe a denial of care to a loved one. And he's clearly Jim, not a professional shooter when you watch the video.
That's what I wanted to bring up with you, because there have been so much discussion over the last 24 hours whether this was a professional hit, this was a professional. Let's first talk about. Okay, so this is the image that we stop it right as he starts shooting, but the first shot he takes, and you see it right there. Hits the gentleman in the leg, and then he immediately has the gun jabbed. And we know that authorities have recovered 3 live 9mm rounds and 3 discharged ones. What does this tell you? He certainly knew the weapon, but the weapon was jamming from the first shot.
Right. Well, he's sort of a doofus, really. I mean, he doesn't have the weapon in top functionality when he's going to commit his murder. And a hired killer or someone with great firearms experience would not be having his gun jammed. His gun would be cleaned. He would have practiced shooting it many, many times. He wouldn't have to do this. Second, his stance is just sort of natural. It's not really a Weaver shooting stance. He does have 2 hands up there. But when he goes to clear the round, now the chief of detectives, Kenny, initially said, he cleared the round, so he's proficient with the firearm. Well, that's the chief of detectives is right. He has more proficiency than the average bear, Jose. But this is not the way that any trained shooter would clear a round. The exercise to clear rounds are tap, rack, bang. And that's drilled into you when you're an agent or officer. Tap, rack, bang. He doesn't do that. He racks the gun to slide, and then he slaps the top of the gun, the top of the slide a couple of times. There's no trained shooter would do that. That's not a method. So, if you're on the range, it's a tap, rack, assess. But if you're in a shooting situation, committing a homicide, it's tap, and the tap is the bottom of the magazine. You ram the bottom of the magazine up because the gun didn't feed right. Then you rack the slide to eject the live round, and then you go back to the action. Tap, rack, bang. That's the drill, and that's beat into your head. So he didn't do that. He just racked it, and he started slapping the top of the gun. So I don't see this guy as a professional killer. And then when he has this engraved on the bullets, well, professional killers don't have a revenge motive. Their motive is cash, greed. You pay me, I take the guy out. They're not going to write an inscription on there. Now, anything could be a red herring, but I think very much this gives us an insight into his mindset. And also, just wanted to close here, Jose.
Please.
The pre-op, we're not talking about the pre-op, so we talk a lot about the post-op, his escape through the alley and the bike to Central Park. We talk about the killing, but it's the pre-op that could also yield his identity. This guy is in a place 5 minutes before the CEO comes by. Likely he surveilled the CEO the day before because he came into town on Monday. On Tuesday, he surveilled him, and then he shoots him on, So he surveilled him some. He maybe knew he was staying in that hotel. And so he may be on the video cameras the day before without a mask. And he could even have a Confederate on the phone in the lobby of the hotel where the CEO is staying. Yeah, he's leaving now, while he's on the phone and getting ready. So I'm not saying it couldn't be a conspiracy either, but there could be some video the day before when the killer or killers are conducting surveillance.
Yeah, and I want to continue this thread of thought with you, Jim, but I want to bring in NBC Stephen Romo. Steve, good morning. Where does the investigation stand as of this hour?
Yeah, Jose, the NYPD is saying yesterday, similar to what Jim is saying, they stopped short of saying that this was a professional hit. They did remark on that it seemed like this shooter did know the weapon somewhat, mentioned that he was able to recover after that gun jam, but did stop short of saying that he was a professional in all of this. We know they're still looking through the evidence, exactly what Jim was mentioning, those words written on the bullets. That could be one of the most major clues that we've heard so far. Previous to this, we heard about the cell phone that they believe is linked to him. And now hearing about these words, that seems to show that there could be enough of a motive that they are able to find out who this person actually is. And speaking with law enforcement who are not directly involved in this case, talking about some things that sort of flag, as Jim was saying, that this may not be a professional hit, is the distance that he is from Thompson when this happens, that he's facing behind him. There's really no reason for him to be that far away whenever he actually carries out this shooting, and the gun jamming, as Jim was talking about, things that you would not expect to see in a professional hit. And the surveillance video, the surveillance images that we've seen, particularly from that Starbucks, showing a fairly good view of the face that we see right there, not the lower half of the face, but if this were a professional job, the law enforcement I'm talking to saying that is likely not something that would be done if this were someone who has done this before, Jose.
Yeah, and Jim, back to the pre-op and these pictures from the cafes and everything like that. There is so much that the shooter left behind, which has DNA in all kinds of ways, right? I mean, if you're a professional, you don't go to a Starbucks where you know that there's cameras and then throw wrappers away, et cetera. So there's a lot there, Jim, that seems to be that this person wasn't very concerned about, being invisible in so many ways.
Right. And what he should have left behind that he didn't leave behind if he was a pro would be the gun. So the pro would leave the cold gun, the gun that's untraceable to him, a ghost gun or a gun with a serial number cut off. And like Romeo said, you go up, you'd shoot him close, a couple in the head, drop the gun and flee. You don't take the gun with you because if you're caught 10 blocks away, now you're done for homicide. You've got the murder weapon. So, a real pro, he doesn't want the gun again. He doesn't want to carry a gun around that has a body on it. And we saw this so many times in ATF, getting these killers and gangsters, and they want a clean gun. They want a gun. That's what they tell our undercover agents. I don't want a gun with a body on it. I got to have a clean gun. So that he would drop it. So he drops all the stuff he shouldn't, the water bottles, the candy wrappers, and maybe the cell phone, and he takes with him what he should have dropped, which is a cold gun. So he's not a pro. He should have been closer, and his gun jams, and he doesn't know how to clear the misfire. But he effectively does it to an extent. But it's not a professional. This is a guy, I'd say, the motive is revenge. He's telling us on that by the bullets, probably because one of his loved ones was denied health care or was denied, reimbursement, and they were, devastated financially, maybe lost a loved one, and he is seeking his revenge.